Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to episode 106 of the Daily List Report. As always, we've got an amazing show for you today. Her name is McKenzie Ryan. She is a 10-year agent with Compass currently. She is typically based in New York. We might talk about where she's based right now temporarily. We'll see. Earlier this year, she was honored by both RIS Media and Crain's New York as a rising star in real estate. But here's the interesting thing. She is a professionally trained ballet dancer and she is a former gymnast. And so as we talk about how to build your brand, how to put yourself out there in a way that is authentic and true to yourself, how that can impact the business that you have, we're going to talk a little bit with Mackenzie about that. So without further ado, we're going to bring Mackenzie on. Mackenzie, say hello to the agentpreneurs of ListReports.
Hello, everyone. So nice to be here with you.
Now, Mackenzie, thank you so much for taking time out of your, I know, very busy schedule to do this today. I can't tell you how much it means to me, the company, and all of our agents out there to be able to hear from people like you.
Of course, I love connecting with the world, whether we're at home or in person. And I look forward to sharing as much of my story and my magic with you as possible.
Oh, thank you, Mackenzie. You said something there that's interesting to me. And, we touched on this kind of in our prep for the show, right? Which is in this sort of remote world, right? Like, I love this. Selfishly, I love this show because I get to connect with so many amazing people. And, there's a chance that if I reached out to you and I was coming to New York, right, maybe we can grab a coffee and catch up and talk shop, right? But now it's so easy, right? I hop on every single day with agents across the country and we have great conversations and we share learnings with all of our agents out there. And so I bring it up because this is such an interesting time where you can actually do more, right? Like this sort of
Yeah.
remote virtual thing has been interesting. I don't know if you
Yeah.
experience or you feel the same way.
I'm often mistaken as like a super extrovert. The truth is, I'm a little bit of both. And what I love most about what I do as an entrepreneur is actually working on and building the business. So, as you can imagine, in New York, it's very fast paced, and I represent a lot of sellers, a lot of buyers, and then also full blown landlords as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
my time can often be very wrapped up in face to face communication, which I love and adore. And I love meeting new people and building strong and lasting connections. But really, what I geek out on is actually doing like the sort of business building behind the scenes. So I've been very excited and happy and thrilled to just sit down on my computer every day and
Mm-hmm.
just work on strategy, make my phone calls. I mentioned to you earlier, I'm on the phone so much now that by Wednesday, I'm usually losing my voice and it's getting raspy. So it's really what I love to do most. And I've really just enjoyed actually slowing down a little bit, being inside, having more time to read. I
Yeah.
mean, it's interesting because I've been busier than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though I'm not doing the physical showings, I hardly have like a moment to fold my clothing at the end of the day.
I totally understand, Mackenzie. I totally understand. I'm pulling up right now, you're also very active on Instagram. You have, frankly, a stunning Instagram. It's absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. And so everybody out there, definitely check out Mackenzie's Instagram. We'll put a link to it. It's Mackenzie_Ryan. And then we'll also post a link to your Compass site because people
Thank
want to
you.
know more about you, right? And so I'll be curious about your experience there. But,
Yeah.
Mackenzie, why don't we start here? I love it when all of our guests take some time to kind of introduce themselves. I want our audience out there, all these agents across the country, to get to know a little bit about who you are. And you have a really unique background, right? And a really unique story. And so I'm going to take a step back for a second. I'm going to let you tell some of that.
Okay. The history of Mackenzie.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
I'm the youngest of three children. I grew up in New York. My parents are from New York and from Michigan, and I was born into a biracial family. So a lot of that has shaped my view and perspective, and my personal practices and my everyday life, as well as my long-term sort of vision. Having grown up in New York, I just had such a sense and kind of determination to be a really big person and to live a very fulfilled life.
Hmm.
At 5'2", I like to say I have the power of someone who's 7'8".
I love it.
And a lot of that, a lot of that comes from my drive to really make my life extraordinary. And extraordinary not in the sense of like statistical data or recognition, but extraordinary in the sense that I feel very fulfilled and that I feel like I've given my every single day my best, which is why I'm happy to be at home right now, because I've done so much and I've really pushed myself for so long to be my personal best that I feel as though I've lived a full life, even just at 28. So, as a child, I started training for the Olympics when I was 4.
Wow.
And it's not like I had, the parents who were like pushing me in to do stuff or, saying, I take my daughter to ballet. I always brought up what I wanted to do with my parents. And I'd ask them if, I don't know if I'd ask so much as tell them.
Sure.
I would tell them what it is I was passionate about. And I was just so fortunate to be in a city like New York where we had the very best kind of facilities and capabilities to, take my talent and kick it into full gear.
Yeah.
So I went to the Junior Olympics when I was 7 and a half. And that was for me kind of one of the very formative experiences that taught me that I can really go far. Around that time, I was also, I guess I'll call courted to be featured in 2 Random Houses books called "I'm a Gymnast" and I Love Gymnastics. And the series was called "I'm a Dreamer" series, and it was about different child prodigy athletes who were training, and some were training to go to American Ballet Theater and be the principal dancer.
Yeah.
Some were training as ice skaters, and I was training as a gymnast. And it's those like early experiences I can still remember every single day of that time because it was so special. It was special to have people believe in me and, believe in my dreams. And from that point, I really became what I would just call a dreamer.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of my day dreaming because I think it's one of the most important parts of strategy and success. So a lot of people try to form like these big ideas on how to make themselves successful. And really a large part of it is just focusing on your dreams and then, taking daily actions. Most of them are pretty small to actually get to where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So while I was also training for the Olympics, I started dancing as a ballerina because my gymnastics team had a partnership with the Dance Theater Harlem, and we'd kind of do back and forth training. Mm-hmm. And I realized I was also a fantastic ballerina as well. And I danced as a ballerina all the way through college. Actually, I ended up double majoring in dance. I still dance almost every day, and really,
there's some great videos and pictures on your Instagram of you dancing, which is lovely.
Yeah, so I kind of like 2 years ago shed this notion that I needed to be what I thought was expected of me, or I needed to fit into some mold that I kind of felt was being forced upon me. And I just decided that I was going to live my life exactly as I wanted to. And I wasn't going to live with, any fear or like any sense of like, I shouldn't do this. And so I just started doing what I love in a more public forum. And I just started dancing outside and entertaining the great people of New York and all of our visitors. And from there, it became just something I enjoyed doing. So
were you dancing in some of the great parks, or where were you?
Well, I've done performances in Times Square, in Bryant Park, in Grand Central, in Soho. And oh yeah, and in Central Park as well. So
I'm in the
you
granddaddy
know,
of the parks.
yeah, I've covered some key New York landmarks, but I try to do it in places that are inspiring to me,
Yeah.
where I find the architecture of the landscape to be very similar to dance, because it's like all about like lines and length and like having this grand sense of something bigger in New York. So I
Yeah.
like to contribute to that as much as possible.
I love that. Now, during this time, Mackenzie, were you already a real estate agent? Were you preparing to become one? How did you make that transition?
Well, it's a great question. I get asked that a lot. I feel like I got into real estate in kind of three different ways that uh, I'll share as I'm like coming up with them now. One way that I got into real estate was I had a New York City history class in seventh grade, and I just fell in love with New York's history. The way that we built New York from a very small fort town at the tip of Manhattan into a metropolis within 100 years was so fascinating to me that I just dove right into the history, and it's something that's very important to me and my life now. And so when I was 12, I started going to open houses to look at these old
Yeah.
apartments and old townhouses, and I would go alone. So
Really?
yeah, so I was just going solo on a Sunday, and I got to interact with other brokers. They'd ask if, where my parents are, and I would say, I'm here to look at the apartment for them. And
I
after
love
about like
that.
a year, I was able to get myself an internship in real estate, and I started to formally work in real estate as basically a commercial broker's assistant, walking around New York and taking note of what stores were there, what was doing well. So at that point, I was able to really catalog like every single street, every corner, every block, and which is why I know New York like so intimately. So I have the
Yeah.
history portion. I have, basically walking up and down Manhattan streets like every day of the summer. And then my family has long been in different portions of real estate throughout different decades.
Yeah.
So my grandparents, my parents, real estate was always taught to us as being one of the best ways to build, success and build, your family's wealth as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
So I just, when I was 13, I was like, let's do it.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. So, okay. So you're now a real estate agent. So let's just rewind maybe a couple years, right? So you're doing this full time. What did you take from either your upbringing or your background in gymnastics and ballet into your business? There's two facets of that as I think about it, Mackenzie. One side of it is just you're clearly somebody who had drive from a very early age, right? Like you clearly have been a motivated, go-getter, so to speak, since an early age. But then there's the other side of it, which is, how do you parlay that into, if at all, into relationships? Do you have clients that are, in ballet or gymnastics, right? Like there's two sides of it. So talk a little bit about the brand that you've built for yourself and to what extent your background plays into that.
Sure. Well, I think, and I'll say I know for certain that my background is a large portion of what makes me successful. As a gymnast or ballerina, you're basically training every single day for hours on end. And what that teaches you is a really strong work ethic, a lot of determination, but also it teaches you how to be tough. Neither of these sports is physically easy. In
Right.
fact, being a rhythmic gymnast is one of the most physically challenging sports you could possibly think of. In addition to having to be strong, you're also using apparatus like the ribbon, a ball, a hoop, two clubs, a rope. And while you're doing all this, you have to be extremely flexible and doing insane tricks where you're tossing a hoop up into the air and doing 10 different flips while it's up there and then catching it
That's
with
so
like your leg in
wild.
the sky and smiling all while you're in the leotard.
Right.
So if you think about if
It
you think
sounds
about what
ridiculous when you say it like that, doesn't it?
It does. And, I'll try to find you some footage that I have from me as a younger
I
gymnast,
would
but
love to include that. Yeah.
it's, it's the best training you could have to be a real estate broker. When we're working on, let's just say one deal, we have at least 20 different things happening at one time. When you're working on 10 deals, that multiplies to a point where you have to be so laser focused on what you're doing, what your goals are, what your strategy is. But then you also have to have the stamina and the work ethic and determination uh, to actually oversee everything. And for me, it's making sure I'm doing everything to like the very highest level to give my clients that kind of like gold medal result. So I feel like they translate. They translate. One career translated so well to the other, and I'm very fortunate that I pushed myself as a young person now to be a young person broker.
Right.
Um, so your questions about my brand. Huh. Well, I think really my brand came from like shedding, um, just letting go of everything that like didn't make me happy.
Yeah.
And I just so long to be myself without regard for so much of the judgment that I received throughout my lifetime. So I really kind of let go of a lot of things and a lot of people that I felt like I needed to perform for because I was just losing like who I actually was. And I kind of formulated this very easy approach to branding. And I call it the three pillars of my brand. It's your personality, your profession, and your passion.
Hmm.
And having a creative background in dance, and I also love doing art, which not a lot of people know, but I just figured out a way to formulate my three passions into beautiful imagery. And part of it is that I've had so much experience in front of the camera, performing for audiences, performing on live TV, that I've just been able to craft it all in a pretty seamless way. And, the third part of it is just sharing it kind of repeatedly to continue to bolster what you're trying to put out there. So for me, it's really just sharing things that I enjoy doing, which is why, you know, my social media account is very easy to run. I just sometimes don't want to be on the internet.
Right. You know, so let's double down on that for a second, Mackenzie. I love that. Okay, so you said you have this sort of three-pronged approach, right? You said your personality, profession, and your passion, right? So let's just talk about those for a second. So personality is a really interesting one, and feel free to elaborate here, Mackenzie. But personality is an interesting one, right? Because you said yourself that a lot of people think you're an extrovert, and you're probably more of an ambivert, right? So you need some time away to kind of recharge, right? But you're not totally an introvert. And what's interesting about the personality piece, if this is how you mean it, is we've got people I talk to and they're like, I'm really introverted, right? I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to put myself out there. And that's okay. I think no part of this is not trying to be something that you aren't, right? It's staying
Right.
true to what your personality is and leveraging, frankly, the benefits of that, because there's benefits to being an introvert and there's benefits to being an extrovert. One is not better than the other. Is that how you think about personality?
Absolutely. There's never a right answer to how someone should, live their life or feel pressure to try to adhere to everyone's standards. I think personality is something that we end up finding and we end up developing in unison. I don't think one comes before the other. And I think on my behalf, I needed a lot of space, and I still always need space in my life to just
Yeah.
continue developing, continuing, to dream, but more importantly, continuing to feel free. Because if we don't feel free within ourselves, it's very hard to feel comfortable around others. And I found that happening a lot, and I couldn't exactly figure out why.
Mm.
And then I went, here's what happened. It was like a Saturday. It's like a Saturday morning over 2 years ago in New York City, and it was like a sunny, bright day. And I woke up in my bed, and I felt like sad. Like I just felt down, and I didn't feel like the upbeat kind of Mackenzie that everyone is used to. And, you know, I think part of it was I just allowed myself to feel everything and like feel sad and, feel alone or feel isolated. And I
Yeah.
let all that happen to me. Like I didn't get up. I didn't try to like distract myself. I just laid there and I let it happen.
Yeah.
And I cried and I thought about a lot of things. But then I got up and I put on my sneakers and I grabbed my headphones and I went outside. Everyone was like out having brunch and walking their dogs and hand
Sure.
in hand. And like everyone was so happy. And I was like, I'm so happy for all of you guys. Now it's my turn.
Yeah.
And I went to the West Side Highway, which is on the
Yep.
river, the Hudson River. And I just ran for as long as I could.
Hmm.
Like I just ran and ran and I put one foot in front of the other, like looking up into the sky, like running downtown. And I just let go of like all of this stuff that we carry for years and years and years and it holds us back and it keeps us complacent. And from that day on, I finished that run. I was like panting and sweating and disgusting, but I never felt more clear and like empty in a way that I was like rejuvenated, not empty in the sense that I was being held back anymore. And so that for me is how I found my personality. And ever since then, I've just been allowing it to develop.
Oh, it's a beautiful story, Mackenzie. Thank you for sharing that. I've heard people share these sort of cathartic moments in their life, right? When something happens and they have that. I know what you mean by that feeling of being empty. It's a good empty. It's a lightness, right? It's weights lifted, and it's a sense of freedom. And I think
Yeah.
that's really really beautiful. So the second pillar you mentioned is your profession. Obviously, you're a real estate broker, and we've got real estate agents listening to this. So that one's kind of easy, right? Which is part of your brand has to reflect what you do, right? Which is maybe showing a house. Or I interviewed a top agent in Michigan just a couple days ago, and she's really transparent on her social media. She's like, here I am working at midnight for a client. Here I am making coffee at 4 a.m. before my workout, right? And it's legit hustle, right? But she's like, I'm just going to show them my hustle, and they're going to see that, and they're going to be like, wow, she's going to work really hard for me. So the profession piece, I think, is easy. The last one is also very interesting to me, which is you said your passion, right? So if I look at your Instagram, which is my best sort of view into your brand, Mackenzie, right? Because we don't really know each other, is I see a combination of all of these things, right? I see a little bit of who you are. I see a bit about what you do, and I see a lot, frankly, of your passion, right? And I see you dancing, and I see these really beautiful images, and I feel like I kind of know you, even though I don't know you. But that's the point, isn't it? Right? The point is like you should get a sense for who this person is.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. My passion, I learned, is a number of things. And it's including dance, it's including architecture and New York City history, it's
Yeah.
including, self positivity. And for so long, I felt like you could only be one thing or you can only be passionate. There's that old expression, a jack of all trades. And I thought about that expression and I was like, I find that to be an insult because why can't you be good at everything? Why
Yeah.
can't you be passionate about more than one thing without being considered like off center or distracted? And so my passion, I think, when people talk about side hustles, I say, no, you don't have to have it be a side hustle. If it's something that's important to you, then pursue it. You can give 100% to more than one passion in your life. And if you look at like our parents or like a mom who works and is also having a career and has friends, I mean, I don't think you'd call her a jack of all trades. I
That's a
think
good
it's
point.
being able to figure out what you love to do and then just doing it. Like I know it sounds like simple, but it's because it is. And my brand is very simple because it's just the things that I love doing, and it's the way that I like to live.
I do love that. I do love that. I want to make a distinction here, not because of anything you said, but because of, for our loyal viewers here, we talk about this a lot, which is, you said something interesting, right? Which you said is this old phrase of, you know, jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like that's the second part of that phrase. And I think you're right, right? I like that mindset. You're like, why can't I be the best at everything, right? And so that's a really great mindset. The one thing that I talk about on this show, though, as it relates to like brand building, is you kind of need to be known for something. And I don't explicitly mean one thing, but I think the subtle point that I try to make is that a lot of agents out there, they're chasing the next paycheck. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that's an actual reality of this business, which is, hey, I just got paid. Oh my God, I might not get paid for 3 more months because I don't have another deal, right? And that's a very real fear. And the thing is, the piece of it, or the aspect that I talk about, is you can't please everybody. Not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay, right? So there's a level of confidence in who you are and a level of focus around what your brand is and clarity around that, so that some people are going to say, Mackenzie, let's do this, right? You are absolutely my agent. Others are like, I hate your guts and I don't even know you, whatever, right? But that's okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You do have to focus on your passion, which is very important. And you do have to be known for something. But what I find that I see a lot with real estate agents is that it's too heavily overloaded on just real estate.
Yes.
It's like, what I love most, and this is how I kind of developed my branding, is learning about different companies. Companies that we use and purchase and interact with every day, and all of these brands that we see, but we have no idea about. I love learning the history of how these were built, who's behind them.
Yeah.
I learned about the histories of like Dollar General. Like, I'm interested in knowing how companies formulated, how they grew, and how they, got to where they are. A lot of real estate agents are not thinking about themselves in a holistic brand company kind of fashion. And it's just a lot of showing like property listings, which are interesting and they're exciting, and some of them are beautiful. But a lot of what makes the kind of gravitation towards one company or one brand versus the other is actually feeling like there's some personal connection that's like intrinsically built in. And that's where I think it's really important that people show their personality, they show their passion, and they also show their profession, because these are kind of like the 3 pillars on how someone actually connects with a brand or connects with a company, at least in my expert opinion.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It made me think of something, right? Which is, I'm trying to pull this up here so I don't misquote this, but I might mess this up, but I believe this was from Simon Sinek. And when he talks about a brand, right? There are brands that appeal to your mind, right? To your head. They're the logical, right thing to do. Like, you mentioned Dollar General, but maybe like a dollar store. It's like, I know I'm going to get a good deal. I don't have any brand affinity or loyalty. It's just that it's going to be cheap, right? And then you have brands that appeal, to your heart. And then as he does it, not to be, vulgar here, right? But the further down you go, right? So when there's even a different kind of brand attachment, right? But
Right.
but I think it's interesting because what you're talking about is, it's kind of an old school mindset, right? To like, just put listings up on your social media, as old school as social media is, right? But now I think the most successful people, have exactly what you said, which is some combination of these various aspects of their life. And they're really showing who they are. And look, let's be honest. You kind of have to be at least a somewhat interesting person for that to work. That's the honest truth, right? Or at least to do it extremely well, you have to do that. And most people have their own interesting thing. We have a term at ListReports, Mackenzie, that we sort of coined, and we call it delightfully weird, right? And I won't go into the whole background, but I love this term. And what we say, and we have this in our recruiting materials, is that we're a bunch of delightful weirdos. And the point is, right, is that we're all weird in our own way, but it's a good thing. And we're delightfully weird. And we have people who love Lego and people who love whatever it is. It doesn't really matter, right? Yeah. But even if you don't think you're interesting, there's something interesting about everybody. And it's about bringing that out to the forefront, because people like authenticity.
I love that term.
It's a great term, right?
It's great, and I'm going to use it and give you accreditation. I am also very weird. I'm a weird person.
No, you're a delightful weirdo, Mackenzie. Let's
I'm
be honest.
delightfully weird. But yeah, to your point, I've done a number of branding and kind of marketing panels, and for other real estate agents, and they say, well, oh, well, you train for the Olympics, like that's really exciting, and cool. I don't have anything like that. I say, hold on. First and foremost, everyone is interesting, and then we start
That's right.
talking about like what they enjoy doing on the weekends, and it turns out they actually enjoy doing chemistry and have a lab that they go to.
Right.
That is the fascinating stuff that people want to know. Yes,
Yes.
you can sell their apartment, but like what is actually interesting is what's inside.
Hmm.
uh, so I'm happy to be on the delightfully weird roster.
You absolutely are. You're an honorary member. Yes, I love that. Well, Mackenzie, I think it's time to wrap. Is there anything that I missed? Anything else you want to share with our agents out there?
I think with agents, I want to just touch on a point that you discussed about feeling that anxiety of when am I going to get my next deal?
Yes.
When will I have my next paycheck? It's really, it's a very daunting industry because, it takes a long time to build and to not have that anxiety. And a lot of people don't tell you that, or they don't they don't share what the early years were like. And they just, what you kind of see is like the high price listings. You see their Instagram and you think there's a lot of success. Really, I want to say to agents that the anxiety is a part of the business, and it never fully goes away, but you have to learn how to into a tailwind and not a headwind. You have to figure out a way to do small actions every single day, simple things like calling people, simple things like writing letters. Who knows what will happen with the postal system, but like
Oh God.
even sending letters to people, simple things like just thinking about what you enjoy in your profession, what you're grateful for. Those are the things that I do every day. And there are certainly parts of the month where I'm like, oh, I wonder how I'm gonna, get my next sales listing, or I wonder how like I'll find a new buyer. And the God's honest truth is that all of this stuff is going to come from the universe. It's going to come from the energy and the work that you're putting out there. So talking to your friends, talking to your family, talking to your old clients, not asking for business, not chasing things, making yourself someone who's pleasant to be around. Because at the end of the day, people just want to work with someone who's pleasant and enjoyable, but also
Yep.
good at what they do.
Absolutely.
So, leave the anxious part out of it and try to just focus on the positive parts.
Beautifully said, Mackenzie. I couldn't have wrapped the show better myself, so I'm glad you're here to do it. That's wonderful. Mackenzie, thank you for your time and your passion and your words of wisdom, and just thank you for sharing with us today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And signing off to all my wonderfully weird people out there.
That's right. We got delightful weirdos everywhere, Mackenzie.
I've already rebranded it in a
I
matter
know
of
you
one.
did, didn't you? I love it. Mackenzie, I hope we get a chance to talk to you again one of these days soon. I would love the opportunity to.
Oh, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Mackenzie, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, there you have it. What a great
Yay.
show. What a great conversation. Love talking with Mackenzie today. Remember this sort of three pillars of a brand that you talked about: your personality, your profession, your passion. The thing I think that resonates with me a lot is I'm also a dreamer. And so I love this idea of being a dreamer, being able to think about the possibilities. It really helps open your mind from the constraints and the weeds that we live in every day, and it gives you this sort of north star to point yourself to. So I think just tremendous advice from Mackenzie. Again, make sure you follow her on Instagram. It's a great example of, I think, a beautiful, just a well executed Instagram, which is a great combination of the things that she talked about. So make sure you follow her there. And then, of course, check her out on Compass. We have both of these links available to you. All right, well, we're going to wrap today's show. So until tomorrow, be safe, be healthy, be happy. And I'm going to add today, keep dreaming.